We are 3, 2, 1 in just a second. Hey guys, it is Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And what do we do every Wednesday at 7 o'clock? It is Wine Wednesday. I'm Joni Bates, and I have been doing a Memory Maker series all month, inviting amazing women onto my Wine Wednesday to talk about all the things that we as moms, memory makers, in Maycember have to literally juggle to make all the things look easy for our people. And I have to tell you, Erin is my guest tonight, and I'm going to gush a minute.
Oh,
I'm going to gush because I met Erin, I don't know how many years ago, almost 10 years ago. And instantly I had a girl crush. I just went, oh my gosh, I want to be her. She's just so nice. And I had just moved here, and she welcomed me into her home, and she is just absolutely amazing. So I am so thrilled that you said yes. I was like,
well, I was so thrilled to be asked,
oh,
to
I
be
really,
honest. And I remember that evening we did a
mhm.
favorite things party. That was the first time I had ever done anything like that. And you came in and you brought like your chalkboard and you like did a whole like welcome thing, welcome like writing and sign. And I was like, she's so creative.
Oh, and I remember it was a favorite thing, and so you brought your favorite things, and in the little bag that I had, it was glitter, glitter, and more glitter. It was like glitter nail polish, there was glitter eyeshadow, there was all these different things, and that hasn't changed. Harlow's going to come in here. You want in? Come here.
Oh, that's so funny. I have my little doggy hanging out with me too.
I know. He's like, he always likes to get on camera. Well, come here, baby.
Oh,
Well, last week we had, let me pick him up. Come here. Last week we had done our giveaway. Say hi, Harlow. And Diva's on. I see you, babe. Diva won our giveaway from last week. Hi, Diva. So
hi,
she
Diva.
won our Mary Kay giveaway, and then our guests just kind of cruise across the bottom and say hi to us. And so, hey, Denise. Hi, Harlow.
Okay, yes, I can see now. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, where are you seeing them?
Yeah.
I'm so bad at going live because I am of the age where, I need the reading
Oh, yeah.
glasses.
Mine are on my head. You see it?
Yeah.
Mine on my
And
head.
it's kind of like one of those things where I'm like, wait, let me put those on. So
Amen.
you know,
Well, there's so many things I want to talk to you about because we kind of live parallel lives. We are very much in the same space. I think we really have a lot of the same mindset. And I think it's fascinating what we both have, hi, honey, what we have both decided to do with this season. I guess we're going to call it a season.
I love that.
Amen. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself because I could introduce you in a zillion different ways, but I want to give you that space to introduce yourself.
Well, thank you. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. And I was very honored. And like Joni said, we are kind of both in that same season. In fact, before we came live, we were talking about, I was asking her like, now what made you decide to like do real estate? Because she, like me, stay-at-home mom for many, many years. My kids were my priority. I have 3 boys. All of them are grown and out of the house now. One is actually 2 are still in college. The middle one is on the 6.5-year plan, but we won't call him out.
No.
And the youngest one is a rising junior. And so I had been a stay-at-home mom with the birth of my second child, who he's 24. And I enjoyed I don't regret it. It was the best thing I could have done for our family. Well, about 10 years ago, I've always just loved helping people, which is exactly what you do in real estate, right? You're helping people find their homes or sell their home.
Right.
And so I became a yoga teacher and then slowly got my first certification, got my second certification, ended up doing a yoga therapy certification and really enjoyed that, working with private clients, teaching yoga classes in nearby studios. And then it's actually been almost 2 years ago now, my youngest was a senior.
Yep.
And I was coming up on that empty nest. and like going, what in the heck am I going to do? And I had just decided that I'm going to start a podcast. Like, never done it. I don't even actually really like like being in front of the camera, but the whole idea of doing a podcast just behind the scenes, like if you're on radio, right?
Right.
Nobody has to
Right.
see you, nobody has to like look at you. And I just started doing a bunch of research. I found a co-host, started doing a lot of research. We spent about maybe 6 months, maybe 5 months, just doing a lot of research. We would have weekly production meetings. That's how official we got about it. We
I
were like,
love that. Well, you have to. If you're going to take yourself, if you want other people to take you seriously, you have to take yourself seriously.
and we
So, yeah.
did. It's like
Mhm.
it became a thing where, nothing got in the way of those production meetings, even
Mhm.
though, technically I'm working for myself. I could like do it whenever, but we had this set time that we set aside. And so in October of 2021, we launched the
Okay.
podcast. It's called Midlife State of Mind.
Love it.
The whole idea behind it was that as I was entering, I'll be 53 in July. And just as I was getting into midlife, which I know it's technically not midlife, but I mean, because I probably won't live to be 100.
Oh no, I'm all about midlife. We're gonna put that in the universe right now. That, oh hell yeah, it's midlife.
Yeah, I'm like, technically, I guess maybe 40 was midlife for women. But
Uh-uh.
anyways, I consider it midlife, meaning that, first it was like that growth period where, you're getting into adulthood. Then it was the kid period,
Yeah.
and then now it's my time again, and then getting into my, twilight years. But I just kind of decided that I was tired of like, I was talking to girlfriends and we were all like, menopause, perimenopause,
God.
all these changes that were happening to our bodies, all these changes that were happening in our minds.
Yeah.
And so I had this vision of starting a podcast where I could talk about topics that I had been having these conversations with girlfriends, with the
Mhm.
ultimate goal of deciding that I want to host international retreats. I've hosted yoga retreats in the United States, but with the goal of hosting at least 2 a year. Right now, where I'm about to have my first one in October.
It's so exciting.
I know, you should come. No pressure, but so we just want to host these retreats. And our first one is called Reclaiming Your Wholeness.
Mhm.
And it's not necessarily a yoga retreat, although there will be yoga. It's more of, I want to call it like a wellness retreat with experiences. So if you've read Eat, Pray, Love, it's going to kind of be that,
Right.
where we're going to have fun. We're going to do neat things. We're going to have experiences.
Eat really good food.
Definitely good food. The place that we're hosting is in Tuscany, and it's in I think it's a 12th century farmhouse that this lady in the late 80s bought. Her name is Francesca. She's very much into Ayurveda, which is the sister science kind of to yoga.
Mhm.
Everything is, it's a working farm. So people that come on the retreat can actually even spend a day or an hour working on the farm.
Right.
So they grow all the food that we eat. Not everything that we eat is grown on the property, but everything that they grow we'll get to eat. We're going to do like a traditional basket making class. Francesca's going to do a cooking class for us. We're going to do some wine tours, that kind of stuff. It's going to be amazing. And the whole idea behind it, and it's not just for women, although primarily I feel like the podcast, which surprises me that I have male listeners, but maybe they're just wanting to get into the heads of their wives.
Those are some smart men. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Those are some very, very intuitively, yes, smart men.
Exactly. So I feel like they're getting the inside scoop from me and my co-host Belinda.
Uh-huh.
But it's really about using that time. It's the 21st through the 27th. So using that time of reconnecting we're using principles of yoga, but you don't have to be like, you don't have to do yoga to come on this retreat. But we're
Right.
using these principles to really reconnect with ourselves, because what I found that as a stay-at-home mom, and probably you experienced the same thing, I had lost a lot of my identity.
Amen.
I didn't know what I liked anymore. I
Mhm.
cooked things that my family liked. I did things that my family liked. We saw movies that, my kids wanted to see. Every activity, which I'm not regretting it at all,
No,
but I was
absolutely.
kind of, as I was about to embark on the empty nest, I'm like, who the heck am I? So
And
that's kind of,
amen.
yeah.
And I have listened to your podcast, and what I like is it really is like being out to lunch with your girlfriends. And it's the things we talk about, it's the things that are important to us. And as women, particularly when you're talking with your tribe, it is an open book. Nothing is forbidden. I mean, everything is on the table. And that's what I love about what you guys talk about.
Thanks. It's really funny because I am an open book,
Mhm.
and I share a lot on the podcast that sometimes I'm like, golly, you got a big mouth, Erin. But I see only way I know how to be.
Yeah.
And what's really funny is that when sometimes I'll see people who have listened
Mhm.
and then they reference something, and I'm like, how did you know that? And they're like, oh, because you talked about it on the podcast. I'm like, and I'll get messages from people because we did a whole episode on mayhem and midlife, and some of the things that we talked about on there. And hopefully this is suitable to talk about. But one of the things was vaginal atrophy. I
Amen.
I
It's
never
called
even heard of it
Nori.
until a
You
year
got to
ago.
go to Nori, y'all.
And I'm going like, what? What is that?
Mhm.
And so I'm like, why isn't somebody educating us about this before it becomes a problem?
Thank you. Why are we not talking about it?
Thank
Amen.
you. So really, honestly, the smart people to listen to the podcast are the 30-year-old women who have they will be so much further ahead than I was if they listen
Amen.
to what I have to say, because they're going to be like, oh, it's not going to be, mysterious.
Well, exactly. Isn't that the thing? Is what you're basically doing is you're bringing wisdom by being your authentic self and just sharing. We no longer have the communities that you were born in one house and then you stay in the house till you get married and then you live really close to your mom and then your aunts are around you and like they share that stuff and you would kind of hear it and you would listen. We don't have that anymore.
We don't. We've definitely moved away from that, more of that village.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've heard, and I don't know if it's necessarily true, but when women used to, and I'm not advocating that we go back to these days, but like going down to the streams to wash,
Mhm.
clothes, and all the women would gather and they'd have these, you know, chats. There's probably a better word for that, but this time of gather, or like back in tribal days where
Mhm.
tribes, and so maybe the men would go out and hunt for the meat, and the women would gather and they would bake bread together and do
Mhm.
all of the things. And we've become so singular, which is
Absolutely.
one of the things that I really love about yoga, is it is about connection and about union, not
Mhm.
just with others, but with yourself.
Absolutely.
And so having that time of, togetherness, connection is what we're here for. And
Mhm.
nowadays, there are so many things that take us away from that. And social media is like such a great tool for staying connected, but
Right.
used in the right way, sometimes it can, cause us to like break that connection. But
Well, and I think what we're talking about is intimacy. And intimacy is not about, man, woman, all that chihuahua. It is about getting to see people like and be an authentically present in the moment with someone and genuinely hearing them. And if you lack intimacy in your life, you are not living a full life. And I
right.
do think when you do your podcast, it's creating that intimacy because you're sharing yourself. And even though it's through social media and you're not in a room with someone, and it's a podcast, it's still the exact same thing. And so
Right.
you're doing such a service because being a stay-at-home mom, I remember 25 years stay-at-home mom, it was lonely. There were times where you were just like, what the hell am I doing with these little people?
Right. And nobody
And
appreciates you.
oh my God, and then if God forbid, if you are in the military or corporate, like we were corporate, and you move every 3 years, well, you start over again every 3 years. And that's really tough. And it's no different than in this season of our life right now. There's no book. There's no book about, different things that happen to your body, to your mind. And this is one thing that I love about you, about the possibilities of the freedom of being in an empty nest.
Yes, and it is amazing. I will say this, the day that my son was going to college, my youngest,
Yeah.
I woke up crying. I mean, before my feet even hit the floor, and I've never cried since. And it doesn't mean I don't love him. And my favorite time is, and I'm sure because our oldest kids are both the same
Yep.
age.
Same age.
And that doesn't mean that I look back on the times of being a stay-at-home mom as some of the just most rewarding and just lots of joy, absolutely loneliness, heartache, all of that other stuff, not feeling appreciated, but I wouldn't do it any other way. And this season is just, it's like I have this, the world, I know this is so trite to say, but the world is my oyster.
It is.
It's like, just like you've shown by just, I was just talking to my son that is the same age as Shelby is.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him about you, and I'm like, I mean, she just came out of nowhere, she's just like Mrs. Real Estate. And so just seeing, there's something I think freeing at this age where we become less concerned about what other people think about us, less concerned with maybe society. And we're kind of like just willing to like be ourselves and show up and maybe fail. Maybe things don't always go as planned, but it's not, we've learned to kind of take the punches of life and just roll with them and just keep that optimism and keep going.
Yeah. Being unapologetically yourself and part of that is, like you said, giving less F's because okay, so if I did that wrong, no one died. So let's just keep going.
Exactly.
Where there's no fear, right? Because we have already been so many times around the sun. I mean, after raising 3 boys, you got a gold medal.
Yeah, I'm like, there is nothing you can nothing daunting. My oldest had 22 ISSs by the end of sophomore year. So I'm like, listen, these sparkles are actually well-earned, people.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Amen.
yeah, I mean, it is. And I wish that, and I know that it's just something that you have to get to that point, but I really do wish that I had this type of mentality earlier in my life. But, everything has to happen when it happens.
Absolutely.
And there's a reason that it's happening now where, I'm like, okay, I'm going to start a podcast. Do I know how to start a podcast? No, I'm going to do it. I'm going to learn how to edit. I'm going to learn how to, and do I do it perfectly? No. Some of the episodes I'm like, oh, I definitely, it's always a work in progress. Right. But I'm like, I'm just going to keep doing it.
Well, isn't it fun though to go back to some of the podcasts in the beginning and look at you can see your timeline, you can see your growth, and there's no other tool that we have where we can actually see that. And for me personally, Wine Wednesday has been 3 years, and it blows me away that I've been doing this every Wednesday for 3 years. But when I go back, not only has my confidence been built in being a business owner, being a practitioner of real estate, but as a human being and sharing knowledge and just being who I am in service to others, the amount of work put in is still immeasurable to the blessings that have come back. And that is not what I expected. That is something that was a very blessed surprise.
Well, and I'm sure when you started, it was scary. And, it's like being live and putting yourself out there is very scary because you just never know what's going to happen. But
Mhm.
to see you now and how far you've come and your confidence and
Mhm.
just your just ability to be relaxed. Yeah, it's just, this is such a great time in our life, in this season. I can't even, sometimes I'm like, wow, like this is my life.
I know. Isn't that the truth? And
Yes.
I think that's what's important for us at this stage. Um, for me, I got kind of pushed into it because of my circumstances. It was more by
For
desperation
me,
and
right.
desire, right? But I absolutely now my why has changed from providing for my family and getting us through a tight spot to, oh, ladies, come on. The water's fine. If there's something that you dream of, let's go, right? Let's do it. There's nothing that should stand in your way because truly the only thing is yourself.
And that's exactly what holds us back. Very
Mhm.
rarely is there anything but just fear. And it's like we actually touched on this in one of our podcasts about expectations, and we were saying that oftentimes we spend a lot of energy imagining the worst,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
we almost catastrophize. I don't know if that's a real word, but it is
Yeah,
in my book.
absolutely.
We just like, and we expend all this energy like, well, if this happens and this happens, and we're kind of always waiting for the other shoe to drop on us. And instead, we really need to spend our time on like imagining the best that could happen. Like, what is the best thing that could happen, and rewiring our brains, because it's interesting. I learned a lot about just, human psychology doing my yoga therapy training
Right.
and just reading, is that our brains are actually wired to make it for survival, not for happiness. So
Mhm.
we do have to rewire. We can change that. It's just done through practice. We can change the way our brains naturally just are always looking for danger. That like
Mhm.
reptilian part of our brain is like, okay, danger, danger. It's always on, patrol. And that can get us into that spot, that
It
space.
can. And I think particularly when you're a full-time mom and I don't want to get myself into trouble. I'm talking from about me specifically. As a full-time mom, mother of four, I was always ready for someone to cry, scream, bleed, puke. Like you were always ready. And I didn't have another outlet. I didn't have a career. My career was being a stay-at-home mom.
Right.
So when that ended, I was still on high alert. I was still looking, like you said, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was waiting for those things to happen. And if you're not real careful, you're going to create those things.
Right.
You're going to go down the path of least resistance, which sometimes can be that negativity mindset. And you really have to put yourself back in check. You have to get between those navigational beacons of the mindset, the positivity, read the books, the podcasts, go to the conferences, surround yourself by positive people. Like it's an effort, particularly in this world, to make sure that you're being fed in a way that keeps you positive.
One, I always go back to the thought of whatever you focus on is what you're going to focus on. So, and just as somebody who's been married for almost 33 years,
Mhm.
and people always want to know the secret. I'm like, there is no secret. The secret is you just do it every
There's,
day.
yeah,
Is And also is that I never try to focus on the things, quote unquote, that I find as bad traits in my husband or lacking if he does something. So I always am trying to focus on the positive qualities that he has and that he
right.
brings to our marriage. And when I do that, that's my focus because I'm focusing on the positive. So my focus is positive, and it colors everything in a way that keeps us married. Because if
Yeah.
I focused on the things that he does, that maybe he's lacking in,
Oh, yeah.
doesn't do this or he doesn't do that or he does, and I have a lot of friends who who've been unhappy because they are always focusing on the lack or the
Well, and it goes back to that, what wolf are you feeding? If
right.
that's that of, there's always going to be two wolves in your life. There's always a positive and negative. There's always there's always that choice. And we're not saying like that some things won't be in a serious suck. I mean, because some things just do, and you have to give that recognition, but don't give it power is what we're talking about.
Right. I'm not talking about toxic positivity of everything's all cheery, even when it's not.
Lord Jesus, we don't have time for that.
Brushing things under the rug. And when
Right.
we had it just in my marriage, when things need to be addressed, I address them, but I don't, like you said, address it and move on, remedy it and move on. So it is definitely, I try to feed the wolf that is going to keep me positive by listening to podcasts, by having a positive self-talk, by surrounding myself with people who are positive, like you, who are looking to uplift and and notice the joy in life.
Absolutely. And I think that's the key. What you just said is joy and happy are two very different things. We like happy babies. We like happy, but as a grown woman and as business owners, we're looking for joy, because joy is something that is absolutely goes through everything. You can have a really bad day and some bad stuff happen to you, but that nothing can steal your joy when you have that mindset. And that's what I love about everything that you've ever done with your yoga practice and your podcast has had joy absolutely as a thread through it.
Thank you. Well, that's good to know, because I try. I mean, and
You do.
hearing it from you is just like such a blessing to hear. So thank you.
No, and I love it. So what would you say? And I've heard you say it in your podcast, and we're going to make sure that everyone has that connection in the chat as how to get to your podcast. But what would you say to other women, people in general, but we're talking about the ladies, who have a dream, who want to do something, but they're being held back by themselves? What would you say to them to help them?
Well, I think that I would say, instead, going back to that catastrophizing, instead of saying what is the worst that can happen, is what is the best that can happen, and then make a plan. I'm not saying go off on willy-nilly. Although I do have to say, trust your gut, people, ladies. My gut has never steered me wrong. My gut, and I'm not a super analytical person. Like, when I decide to do something, it's because it's coming from my gut. And I think that, I will be analytical about it, somewhat. But even when I know that it goes against maybe people would have been, if I would have maybe told a lot of people that I was going to start a podcast back then, they might have been like, you don't know anything about podcasts. Why would you even think you could start a podcast?
Right.
So if you have a dream sometimes, and I used to tell my yoga students this, a lot of times we would talk about this, as the end of the year would come around, is that fall is a great time to start to germinate, say, a dream, an idea, a plan. And then you want to nurture it for a little while. Just like if you had a little seedling that you were starting from scratch, you do kind of keep it in the dark, right? You keep it in the dark and you kind of keep it covered and moist.
You protect it, because you don't want people coming to step on your little seedling.
Exactly. And you nurture it, you love on it. And that could be by doing research on your dream, maybe meeting with a business coach, or reading a book on how to, if your dream is to have a coffee shop, find out everything you can about that. Then as you start to let your little dream sprout, then you can tell people. I'm very careful. I was very careful in the beginning of not just blanketly letting everyone know that I was going to be starting a podcast, because I didn't want to hear those naysayers, and I didn't want to, and I was going to say, so also this last year, and I think you knew this. I had gotten my real estate license for a hot minute.
Yep.
And then I was like, you know what? That's just not my calling. My calling is health and wellness. So, and I decided I'm going to become a health coach. It's going to be a perfect marriage for the yoga therapy and the yoga just my personality. So I started a 2.5-year program to become a functional medicine health coach. I mean, at my age, probably not the smartest thing. But I'm like, what else am I going to be doing in 2.5 years?
Thank you. Right? Why not?
So I'm like, I'm going to do it, and luckily I have a supportive husband. I'm super blessed in that regards. And I'm very grateful that I, he was like, sure. Like, I'm going to see, my goal is in the next year to start seeing private clients, helping them get to the root cause of disease, and using my yoga therapy training and that training, so kind of the marriage of the mind and the body and kind of making that all. But it really was a foolish, probably, endeavor. I didn't tell a lot of people when I first started because I didn't want people to say, well, you're like going to be 53. Like, what are you doing going to school for 2.5 years, 3 years I'm like, you know what? I nurtured my little seed and
yeah. And you have, like you said, you have a dream, you need to protect it. And not everybody is going to have the vision of your dream. And that's okay because it's not theirs and it's yours. And the way I look at my real estate is as a child. Like, you protect your children, you invest in your children, you guide them, you do all the things, and then you challenge them. And so when you're doing exactly what you said, when you're growing something new, you have to give it that kind of dedication too. Like, you can't just push it aside like a kid. I mean, sometimes you do. You're like, Mama gonna need a minute.
Like sit in front of the TV when they were little, or you give them their Game Boy for a little while.
Mama's gonna need a minute, but ultimately you always bring it back into focus. And I think for me personally, that's the key, is if you're doing something and that's worth doing, think of it as an additional child. And are you willing to put that much time into it?
Yes, exactly. So
right.
Trust your gut, ladies. You can do it. I feel like, really honestly, like we said, we are the only people that hold ourselves back. I mean, and so where there's a will, there's a way. And I think you can just about, women are, especially in this age, I think we are powerful. I mean, we are powerful. Like, don't let anyone tell you that I don't remember who it was, Don Lemon or whoever said, like women of the 50s don't have anything left to offer. I'm like, oh, he has no idea what he even just said. That is such misinformation. That this is when we are our most powerful, I think.
The wisdom alone, coupled with courage and having the right tribe with you.
Yes.
Forget about it.
Yeah.
I mean, truly. And that's part, I would love to have you back to talk about tribes. I am very, very big. In the past 3 years, my tribe has significantly changed. Had heartache involved with that because a lot of folks did not think I should be doing what I'm doing. That I really should have not done this. And I'm like, who the hell are you?
You're like, unless you're like paying my bills or then, well, and that's another thing, since you brought that up about tribes too, is that there's this whole like movement of like women supporting other women. But I was reading a post of a lady that I follow. She's an influencer. She does a lot of like home makeover stuff anyways. And she said every time she posts something, the negative comments come from women. Negative comments about her body, negative comment about her kids, negative comments about this. They're all from women. And I think what it ends up being is that it's an insecurity, and we don't have to dim anyone else's light. I mean, if you aren't surrounded by people who want the best for you and who support you, and this is actually, I sent this to my co-host today about doing an episode on this, is that your friends should be the ones that support you and are cheering you on and wanting the best for you. And if they're not, then they're not your friend. And I'm glad that you realized that. And you were like, okay, no, I got to surround myself with different people.
Yeah. We refer to it as the rocket ship. There are some folks who are meant to help you launch and get into orbit. And there's some folks who just aren't supposed to go along the ride. When that stage 2 falls off, some people don't get invited.
Right. But sometimes those people are the fuel that you need to do what you need to do, because I'm kind of
Mhm.
that person
Mhm.
who, if you tell me it can't be done, or I think I'm a little bit stubborn, and
Uh-huh.
maybe like ornery at times.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh no, 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 no. You don't tell me that I can't do it, because then I'm going to do it and I will not give up.
It's kind of that watch me moment, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, bless your heart, watch me.
Yeah. Well, so funny, a little side note about that, because, and this is years ago, obviously, but when my husband and I, because we met and got married very quickly, and my older sister, because I was getting married before her, God love her,
Oh,
she's like,
yep.
I I give it 3 months. So that is why we've been married almost 33 years.
Mhm.
Because I'm
Mhm.
like, oh no, 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 you will not win.
Oh,
Anyways,
yeah. No, we're not doing that, sister. Sorry. Not
yeah,
doing that.
yeah.
Well,
And
I
which
have
she
kept you.
forgiveness. She's asked for forgiveness many times. So
Oh, forgiveness, not permission. Amen. Um, I have kept you on
yeah.
longer than I should, and I adore you. And please, 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 please come back. And
I
then
will. Yeah, and
Erin's
then you can
giveaway.
do the drawing. So
Yes.
this is my little. My husband's always like, "Girl, you got so many irons in the fire." But little makeup business I fell in love with 6 years ago.
And I
It's a
do
brush
love that makeup.
for makeup brushes, for any makeup brushes. It's amazing. So I know you'll do the drawing, and this
Yep.
stuff, I'm telling you, they're gonna love whoever wins
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah. Julie's got that side covered. Talk about tribe. My marketing director, Julie, she keeps my glitter in a jar so that my glitter can shine through, but I don't get messy. So that
yeah.
is what my Julie does for me. And I thank you, thank you. And we're going to make sure that everyone has the information for Italy. I don't
Yes,
know. You should probably save me a seat because that sounds
I
amazing.
want you to go. I'm telling you, it's gonna be life changing.
I don't
So
know. I think maybe I can do some kind of speaking and write it off, maybe.
exactly. You could go visit some properties.
I could actually do some international business. That's what we're
You're
talking
like,
about.
isn't there a Keller Williams like agency there that you could go visit?
100%. Little phone call. I
Yeah.
adore you.
I
Thank you.
adore you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Joni,
Thank
and
you.
thank you to all your followers and watchers.
Oh my goodness. And we're going to be following you on your podcast. All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Blessings.
Bye.
Smooches. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks.